So if difficulty is that different per person and per game and that unpredictable and that hard to control, what can you do? Certain things we know don't work, and I'll go through those quickly without justifying myself a lot, because I covered how they're not working. But easy, medium, hard doesn't work because there are a lot of people who need the easy mode but won't choose it because of the stigma attached to it. It also doesn't work because when you are first asked to pick that, you don't know how hard you're going to find the game. So you can't choose it before the experience, you have to hit the problem and then go, and then there's also a resistance to even changing it, because, you know, regardless of what you call them, even if you just call them difficulties 1, 2 and 3, there's a stigma to like, oh, I've hit this, I think I need to ask the game to make it easier for me. There are some people who just won't do it, and so that system doesn't work. Adaptive difficulty, I won't say no system like this can work, but they are far more difficult than you expect, and most games that have done this in a major way have failed. I remember Sin Episodes was trying this and it didn't work very well. I tried this because I thought I can solve this problem. This is obviously the way to do it. The way I should be doing it is, you know, we have all this data on how well the player is doing. Why don't we just change the game to match how well they're doing? I tried it with heat signature for a while. It was never in the build that anyone else played except at shows, and it didn't work because it becomes an unknowable mess. You don't know what the game is doing or why it's doing it. You can't really test it really, because it's so different for every single person that you don't know what it's doing and why it's doing it. Like, then if you see, you know, someone failing a lot, you don't know what level the game thinks they're at, what it's trying, how it's trying to fix it. Is it failing to understand that they're failing, or is it failing to make it easier for them to succeed? It's just a very messy, very difficult thing, and it also doesn't work because if the player knows it's happening, they know they're being punished for doing well, and they won't like it, and they will. You can also exploit it, and even if you could exploit it by basically hustling. You could like intentionally play badly to make the game go easy, and then when it's easy enough at the critical moment, then like come out with your real skill and win. There could be an interesting game you can make about that, where that's explicitly the point, but it's generally a negative thing, and even if you can't exploit it, it feels bad to know, oh, the better I do, the more you're just going to fuck me over, fine. And then, why have I written choose your own safety? Oh yeah, choose your own difficulty as the game goes on. That is the approach we went with heat signature, which is there's a missions listing board, there's easy, medium, hard, you know, all that stuff, and every time you pick a mission you're being asked, what kind of difficulty do you think you can take on? I thought that would work because then you know you've tried an easy mission, you've tried a medium mission, you know what kind, how it felt, whether it's the level you want, whether you can take on more difficulty, and if you can, there's a reward for it. We're pushing you to do it. Doesn't really work in heat signature. It doesn't solve the problem. You know, hopefully we made a good game anyway, but my grand vision for solving difficulty forever did not completely come to fruition, because people will, especially in a game with permadeath, people will err on the easy side, or a lot of players will. The players that the game didn't work for at first were erring on the side of safety, like, oh, I know I can do a medium mission without dying, so I will do a medium mission, even though I'm kind of bored of them and I want to engage with this more difficult stuff. I can't risk losing my character, so it's a bad fit for a permadeath game, and hopefully we address that with the daily challenge and the ability to turn off permadeath, which is in there, and some extra mission modifiers like glitch back guarantee, which means you can't take permanent damage from that mission even if it's a super hard one. But yeah, it's not a perfect solution. So there are some patterns. I think it's more, so many difficulty systems don't work. It's more interesting to look at the ones that pretty reliably do. And one is, it's an old one, but high scores. Like a game where you're just trying to survive for as long as possible and get a high enough score, that isn't a good fit for like Gone Home or I don't know, Breath of the Wild. But within the games that it does suit, it's a really good way of doing difficulty, because every player is going to go as far as they can and hit their breaking point of, oh, they're all going to move through some stuff they can do, which is satisfying, some stuff that is challenging and pushing them to understand the mechanics better, and pushing them to do better and engage with it more, and go through the whole spectrum of that all the way up to like, oh my god, like this is as good as I can do it. I'm being pushed to my limit. Here is, if I'm ever going to be in flow state, here it is. If I'm ever going to have that feeling of like, oh my god, I don't know how I did that, that's going to happen. You're in that really fertile territory, which I think is one of the big upsides of one of the best things you can hope to achieve with a difficulty system. And then they're going to hit the brick wall and like, oh god, I'm dead. And because of that randomness, because of the fact all those things I said make difficulty random, how everything affects everything, and your own, your mood, your reaction time, all properties of your brain, how you're perceiving things, how your eyes process stuff, how your visual center of your brain, processes what your eyes are sending it. All those things that vary from person to person, and also vary from moment to moment within a person, and vary in the AI for the game and the RNG and the particular interactions of everything on screen, mean that they give you the sense of like, maybe I'll do better next time. There is a variance in my performance, and I'm interested in doing better next time. And so that also feeds into roguelikes, because roguelikes are a get as far as you can kind of pattern, but with the added kind of carrot on the end of a stick of like, there is a way to win. You can actually win this. This is not just get as far as you like, there is a way to get through it. And that has obviously proved a very successful formula. It's why roguelikes it's a sort of truism that they're hard. I think that's not really a true statement, because difficulty is super different for everybody, but also because it's not as much about winning. If you play a roguelike for half an hour and you have fun and then you die, you didn't fail the roguelike. If you play Arkham Asylum for half an hour and you die and then you stop playing, the game has failed you, kind of, like you obviously didn't get on with it. But with the roguelike, that's almost the intended experience. You're probably going to stop there for the day. You're not meant to play it for 20 hours, and you're not necessarily meant to win every time you play. Failure is... dying is not the failure state, really. Getting frustrated and giving up and not wanting to play anymore is the failure state for the game. And so they look like the same completion pattern as a linear single-player game that you are intended to complete, but the intent is different. Not the intended difficulty level, but what playing this game and having fun with it looks like is different. And yeah, that can be a successful mix of get as far as you can, plus there is an end goal to aim for. It's not just totally this forever, because that this forever feeling is often a bad one. And it's one of the reasons the high score pattern doesn't fit a lot of types of game, whereas the roguelike pattern does fit a lot of games that high scores alone wouldn't work for. If Spelunky was just an infinite number of levels and with no end in sight, it would get kind of boring. So having that end in sight gives you something to aim for. The downside, of course, is it means there's a skill. Is it a skill ceiling? Yeah, like it means if there are people who can complete Spelunky pretty reliably. Certainly the normal completion, they can just do that almost every time. And so that's no longer an interesting goal for them. And even getting to hell and the secret ending is too easy for them. And I forget who exactly on the Spelunky Show podcast said this, but that they're right now what they challenge themselves to do is how many days in a row can I get to hell reliably, which is the secret extra ending of the game. It's supposed to be the hardest thing there is. They can do it so easily that it's about streak now, and they're still having fun, so great, but that's not the best place to end up on, I don't think. If the hardest thing in your game is so easy for someone to achieve, they're just trying to see how many days in a row they can do it on the daily challenge, which is a one chance thing. Daily challenges are a really good pattern for this, because they fix the heat signature problem where the player choosing their own difficulty pushes them to choose safer things. The daily challenge is a fixed difficulty, but your performance in it is not so binary of like, did you win or did you not? It's a high score. It's basically a way of fitting the high score pattern into games that don't normally have it, in the same way that a roguelike is. It's a sort of subset of those, and I think a better version of. I think it's better than either. I like it more than either of those two things. Betting on yourself is another kind of subset of the high score thing, and it's not a coincidence that high score keeps coming up, because it's kind of reversing the difficulty thing. Rather than asking you to choose how hard you want it, and then we give you an experience, you have the experience and we say how hard it was. Like we give you a score for like, oh wow, you did the really hard thing. And just by putting a number on it, making it a smooth sliding scale, obviously that lets you account for a much bigger spectrum of player performance. And as long as you can encapsulate that and package it and reflect it back to the player and communicate to the player in a way that doesn't feel negative for people who are getting low scores, or people on the lowest end of the spectrum, As long as they're not unhappy, then it's a good system. So betting on yourself is something that 868 Hack does, which is a roguelike as well, and so it fits a lot of these patterns. But that is a game where, rather than just your score being how far you get, it's you take on extra challenge. There is scored blocks in the level, and you choose whether you want to take them or not. And if you take them, if it's 8 points, it summons 8 enemies, and it makes the game way harder to deal with 8 extra enemies. And so you're always judging for yourself, can I take on this extra challenge? And I like that because it provides a very wide spectrum of success and failure, so the players who are finding it too easy can make it harder for themselves and are rewarded for it. There's a reason to do it. It doesn't feel like you're being punished for doing well. You're choosing to take on extra challenge because you think you can take it and you want the points. That's a really happy pattern. And I also like it because there's a psychological element of like, you know, it's no longer purely judging your skill at the game, it's judging your skill at judging your skill. You need to have a good handle on your own abilities, which has its risks too, because it pushes players to play safe again. It's a permadeath game, and there are probably players who don't take on as much challenge as they should because they're scared of losing their run. So there are downsides too, but I like it in general. And then the last one is failure spectrums, which I've talked about before, which is where a game just has a wide range of success criteria, from rather than just being did you complete your mission or not, it's did you complete your mission without being spotted and without anyone even suspecting they saw you, and if they did suspect to see you, did they finally alert, and if they did alert, did they actually get a shot off, and if they didn't get a shot off, if they did get a shot off, did it even hit you, and if it did hit you, did you survive, and did you take them out before they set off the alarm, and if they did set off the alarm, did the reinforcements come, or did you take them all out? And there are all these ways it can go, well or poorly, a wide spectrum from complete success to total failure. And so you're actually very rarely on the brink of game over, which is the sucky part. And instead, you spend all your time between two states. Like there's a way this could go well and there's a way it could go poorly. And when they're successful, when these spectrums work, you feel like that's the whole world. Like the one below where you're currently at, like getting spotted. Oh fuck, I don't want to get, like, I just need to not get spotted. That's the failure state in your head. And when you do get spotted, it's not game over, it's not the true failure state. Now you're in the, oh shit, they've seen me. Now failure is them getting a shot off, and I've got to take them out before they get a shot off. And if you succeed, then you get back up to the previous place. Now no one's seen you, and you're safe, and you get to exist. So you always feel like you're on the brink of failure, but you're not, and you're not on the brink of game over, which is the bad thing. And so they can make you feel like you're always at the exact right point of the difficulty spectrum. You're always something you're trying for and something you're afraid of. And even if you're doing really badly at the game, you're just lower on the spectrum. You're not actually hitting game over all the time. You're just like, oh my god, everyone's seen me. Yeah, I got to mow them all down. That doesn't have to be any harder than avoiding being seen in the first place. That can even be easier. But because you naturally want to avoid it and you naturally want to get out of it, it can be, again, a happy pattern of people always having something to aim for and wanting to aim for it and feeling good about it and having something to be afraid of and a difficulty level that fits them well.